So when you hear the word insurance, what's the first thing that pops into your head? For most of us, it's probably a bill, right? Or some super complicated policy. But what if I told you it's actually one of humanity's oldest and honestly most powerful ideas? Today, we're going to peel back the layers on the story of insurance, not as a financial product, but as a promise that communities have been making to each other for thousands of years.
Okay, this sounds like the setup for a joke, I know. But the answer is actually pretty profound. All of you, those ancient traders, those Roman families, have faced the exact same fundamental human problem. You just don't know what's coming next. And believe it or not, you've all relied on the same core idea to deal with that uncertainty. It's this idea that connects us all the way back to our earliest ancestors.
At its absolute core, this is it. This is all insurance really is. It's just a group of people making a pact. A simple promise that says, hey, if something terrible and random happens to one of us, the rest of us will chip in and help them get back on their feet. It's not really about money. It's about cooperation. It's about knowing someone's got your back.
To really get this, we have to go back. I mean, way, way back. Ever since we've had communities, we've had to deal with risk. The risk of your crops failing, of getting sick, of some disaster wiping everything out. Survival itself depended on figuring out how to handle the unpredictable. Okay, check out this timeline, because this idea is so much older than you think. We're starting nearly 4,000 years ago in Babylon. Merchants there had this brilliant system. If your cargo ship got hit by pirates or sank in a storm, your loan was just forgiven, gone. Then you fast forward to ancient China, and traders knew you don't put all your eggs, or, all your silk, in one basket. They'd split their goods across a whole bunch of different ships. That way, one shipwreck wasn't a total catastrophe. And then in Rome, regular folks created these burial societies, where everyone paid a little bit so that no family would be financially ruined by having to pay for a funeral. This wasn't some modern invention. This was just a basic strategy for survival.
And what's so wild about this is you see the same logic playing out everywhere. These cultures were separated by centuries and thousands of miles, but they all pinpointed a huge, scary risk and came up with the exact same kind of solution: share the burden. It didn't matter if it was a forgiven loan or dues to a club. The idea was identical. You don't let one person go down alone.
And right here, this is the light bulb moment. This is the magic ingredient that makes the whole thing work. See, you have no idea if your ship is going to sink. But if you look at 100 ships, you can make a pretty good guess that, yeah, a few of them probably will. It's this incredible insight that what's random for one person becomes predictable for a crowd that turns chaos into something you can actually manage.
So, for a long time, these informal community promises worked. But as the world got bigger, as trade routes started stretching all over the globe, things got more complicated. The risks were bigger, the stakes were way higher, and you needed something a little more official.
This chart just lays it out perfectly. You see this massive shift. What used to be a social duty, something you did out of goodwill, became a formal financial agreement based on cold, hard data. Instead of just reacting after a disaster, people started proactively paying premiums to prepare for one. That promise was now written down, put into a contract, and that created this solid foundation that let people take on even bigger and bolder risks.
And you know what? This new system of formal insurance contracts worked like a charm. It basically fueled the entire age of exploration. It gave merchants the safety net they needed to send ships to the other side of the world. For the kinds of risks they were dealing with, it really seemed like they had cracked the code.
But the world was about to throw a new kind of risk at humanity, something way bigger than just one lost ship. And it was about to expose the cracks in the system in the most fiery, dramatic way you can imagine.
The year is 1666. A small fire starts in a bakery in London, and before anyone can stop it, it explodes into a raging inferno. The Great Fire of London. It tore through the city, destroying thousands upon thousands of homes and businesses, leaving a massive part of one of the world's greatest cities in nothing but ash.
The fire was a brutal, brutal lesson. It showed everyone that an individual, or even a small group, was totally helpless against a catastrophe on that scale. The city realized it needed a completely new way to prepare for and recover from that kind of massive loss.
And so, literally from the ashes of London, modern insurance was born. This is where it stops being just a promise and starts becoming a science. The very first fire insurance companies pop up, offering policies to help people rebuild. Right around then, life insurance takes this huge leap forward, using these new things called mortality statistics to actually calculate the odds of someone passing away. Math and probability became the tools of the trade. And trust, it wasn't just a handshake anymore. It was all spelled out in legally binding contracts. This is the beginning of the industry we know today.
Okay, so let's jump forward, all the way to right now. How does this ancient idea hold up in our crazy modern world?
I mean, the things we worry about today would be completely alien to a merchant in Babylon. We're talking about cyber attacks, global supply chain interruptions, massive economic shifts. But that core feeling, that fear of a sudden, devastating loss that could wipe you out, that hasn't changed one bit. The problem is exactly the same.
And this, right here, is why it's so important. Insurance does way more than just help us clean up a mess. It actually gives us the confidence to move forward. It's what allows an entrepreneur to take a leap and start a new business, it's what lets scientists develop new technologies, and it's what lets all of us plan for the future without being totally paralyzed by the fear of what if.
So as we start to wrap this up, it becomes really clear that if you only look at insurance as a bill you have to pay, you're missing the whole beautiful story behind it. It's really a story about human ingenuity and our deep, deep instinct to work together.
This quote just says it all, doesn't it? The story of insurance is really the story of us. It proves that our greatest strength isn't trying to build some impossible world with zero danger. No, our strength comes from building systems that let us face those dangers head-on, together, with confidence.
And that kind of leaves us with this big, fascinating question for the future. When you think about the enormous challenges on the horizon, things like climate change, artificial intelligence, even space travel, this ancient idea of sharing risk is going to be more important than ever. The only question is, how are we going to adapt it next?